was 1978, a Farewell to Kings tour. Our second tour ever in the UK. Our star continued to rise in 1978. A Farewell to Kings was generally well received, and Closer to the Heart even broke into the top 40 on UK radio. That was the year the Glasgow crowd blew us away, singing along on the chorus. The first time anything like that had ever happened to us. We played 2 nights at the Apollo there, a classic old theater, kind of like this one, built in 1927 with Corinthian columns, a severe rake on the stage. In thespian parlance, a raked stage is one that's tilted toward the audience, hence the directive. Put that down stage left, where I'm standing right now, and where I've pretty much spent my entire life. It was also a really high stage, 15 feet 6 inches to be precise, so that if you stood at the edge, you almost got vertigo. At face level opposite was a balcony that had been built to bounce up and down. And I can tell you those Glaswegians knew how to use it. Many bands who played there have testified that when the crowd put the bouncy balcony to the test, trampolining with all their might, you stood there in fear that it would collapse. The advantage of playing 2 nights in the same venue is that the road crew doesn't have to pack up and load out after the first show, giving them a night off and us a rare opportunity to unwind together. And so it was, on a February night in Manchester in 1978, that we convened in the bar of the Piccadilly Hotel. Now, for a while, Alex had not been very happy. His second son, Adrian, had been born the year before, and he was missing home big time. Out of the blue, he challenged our stage manager, Lurch, a towering man, 6'11" in height, with a tough constitution. He challenged him to a cognac drinking contest. Now, cognac is usually around 40% alcohol or more, and is for sipping. No one in their right mind knocks it back in shots, and I think I counted a dozen rounds. Soon, words were slurred, voices were raised, and when a clearly plastered Alex triumphantly slammed yet another glass down on the table, it shattered. I looked at Liam, our tour manager, and Howard, our lighting designer, and I said, "You better get him to his room." So they put their arms around him and suggested, "It's time for bed, Lurksty," not least because we had another gig to do the next night. Those of us remaining in the bar had a laugh about it, of course, and then it was decided it was enough for us too. So we were standing there waiting for the elevator when the doors opened, and out flew Alex, lying prone on a room service cart. Cue more lunatic laughter, and once again Liam and Hearns rounded him up and escorted him to his room, which was next to mine. So there I was, sitting on my bed, when I could hear shunting and crashing through the wall, like he was moving furniture around. And then I heard him yelling out to the street, "Hey England, you guys are stupid. You're all living 1,000 years ago. Hey you, can you hear me?" I opened my window and leaned out and said, "Lurks, buddy, go to sleep, it's late." "Dirk, can you believe this? These people are living 1,000 years ago." I said, "Yeah, Lurksty, I know, but come on, close your window." I closed mine and began undressing, but he kept calling my name, and then I heard more smashing sounds. He'd torn down the curtains and was soon leaning out his window again, tapping on mine with the metal curtain rod. "Dirk, don't go. Open your window." So now I'm half naked. I pull back the curtains when the pane cracks apart, showering my room and me with splinters of glass. I looked down to see a 3-piece triangular shard stuck in my tighty whities about an inch from my effing manhood. Gingerly, I removed it, and then I heard scuffling in the hallway and hubbub all over the hotel floor. So I tiptoed over the broken glass to the door and looked out the peephole in time to get a fisheye view of a nearly naked Alex running down the hallway. Then Hearns and Liam chasing him. They were just hustling him back into his room when 2 security guards charged out of the elevator and banged on his door. He opened up with the curtain draped over him like a gauzy toga, obstinately denying that he'd been making any disturbance. He was slurring, I don't give a shit. And then he spat on one of them. As we all cringed, mortified, Hearns did his best to placate them, earnestly apologizing and promising to sort it all out. He urged them to talk it over in my room, but when I opened the door, there for all to see was glass strewn all over the carpet. Somehow, Hearns got them down to the manager's office, reassuring them of our normal, upstanding character, and promised to pay for all the damages. And that saved us from being booted out in the middle of the night. So there I was, curled up in the blankets of that room, with no window, splinters everywhere, and fell asleep as the cool February air rushed in. The next day, poor Al was so embarrassed and humiliated, to put it mildly, even though we knew it was just one of those things that happens when a person is at breaking point. In a fragile state, we all left to do our second show, and when we returned, he went up to each and every employee, shook their hands, and apologized. Perhaps because he was so sincere, they were more than cool about it and even promised to welcome us back next time we were in town. But the following morning, we still left Manchester with our tails between our legs. Thank you. So it is my great pleasure to bring a special person in my life out here and in the life of Rush. Please welcome Donna Halper, former music Shall we sit?
I think we ought to sit.
All right.
But first of all, can I say thank you? Seriously, thank you. If you had told me 49 years ago, it was that long ago, when I first played Working Man, and, which is still a great song, am I right? If you had told me 49 years ago that I would have the privilege of being back here with someone I dearly love, with a group of fans who have been so loyal, I would have said, yeah, right, because it doesn't usually happen that way. But this is a Rush crowd, and
That's it. We wouldn't be here, if you hadn't played that record.
well,
we wouldn't have had the career we had.
I believed in you guys from day one, but let's be honest, I was a music director working for WMMS, and I'm sure some of you remember WMMS. I was a music director, I took a chance on a band. When you take a chance on a band, you never know, okay? And there was something about Working Man that resonated. I knew it was a Cleveland song, I knew that people would like it, but I didn't know that it would take off the way it did, because there's no predicting.
Yeah.
But it spoke to people. And then they wanted to hear Finding My Way. And they wanted to hear Here Again. And then they wanted to know when your new record was going to be out, and et cetera, and et cetera. And here we are.
Yep, but it was as a result of that and your reaction to that song that got record companies calling us.
Absolutely. And I called them and promoted, did whatever I could. And over the years, the Hollywood Walk of Fame, all those things. But this is just about loyalty, okay? You have always been kind and courteous to me. I've tried to be the same to you. But my point is, this is how you are. And I'm not just saying this because I'm sitting on this stage. I'm saying you appreciate the fans. You appreciate people in radio that have stood up for you, record promoters, etc. That's very unusual. I spent 40 years in the business. I did not see it very often, okay? So I appreciate it.
We've got some questions, yeah?
I got questions. Right. So we got questions. First of all, I got to ask you a question I've wanted to ask you since forever, okay? Do you remember coming to Cleveland and playing at the Agora Ballroom?
Oh, yes.
Okay? Now, we have some rare memorabilia from my personal collection, which is a pass that I had to go to the Agora, because when you're a music director or a program director, you have a pass. And by the way, next to it is a WMMS Roach clip. Now,
if I might point out, this Roach clip is unused.
yes, because those of you that know me, know that I don't smoke, I don't drink, I don't do drugs. I do remember the 60s. And when I first got that, I thought it was a keychain. I'm serious. I didn't know what it was. Come on, I teach Sunday school. You know what I'm saying? I get in it for the music, not for the lifestyle. But the reality is, when you came here, you'd played at the Allen, and then you played a show at the Agora. Do you have any recollections from that show? I sure do.
I remember it. It was so hot in there, and the crowd was so intense.
Yes.
By the end of the show, there were guys standing on the stage. They had jumped up onto the edge of the stage and were just grooving, man. It was an awesome,
singing
awesome
along.
night. And I remember coming off before we did an encore. We didn't know that many songs because Neil had only been in the band for so long. And so we played everything we knew how to play. It was a really great night.
And you gave me a very nice shout out, and I really appreciated it. But what was really cool was watching the crowd, because that said to me, yep, I was right. They're with you. They want to hear more from you, and it was just inspiring to watch it. So must have been interesting being up on stage and looking down at all these people, and it's like, they really like us.
Well, it wasn't so down because the stage was pretty low. It was low enough.
Oh, the Agora, yes.
The stage was pretty low. You could hop up.
I remember it well.
Yeah.
So let's get to questions. Oh, this is an interesting question. Okay, this person, I think it's a guy, couldn't be here tonight. Okay, but he sent a question, and we're nice, so we're gonna do this, okay? So it's, the person says, I really wanted to be here.
What's his name?
I'm going to tell you in a second. I really wanted to be here, but I couldn't make it. I'm from Fernie, British Columbia, and my name is Alex, looks like Lifson.
That Alex.
Yeah. So, he sends a question.
Okay.
He's got a question.
What does he want to know?
He wants to know, will you and Alex work together again, and will you work for him? Like getting coffee and stuff.
I would never work for that guy.
Yeah, I've never heard anything good about him.
He's already drunk about 3,000 bottles from my wine center. So I would go broke.
I guess so. Drink drinking coffee. Okay, let's start with the first real one here, okay? So we got one from Carl Schaefer from Pittsburgh.
Carl, where are you?
Carl, where are
Turn the
you?
lights on and have a look at you.
Wave at us.
Wave
Let us
at us.
know where
Shout.
you are. Yes,
There
he's
he
over
is.
there. Yay.
All right,
Okay.
all right.
So, Carl says, I'm from Pittsburgh. My first show was Roll the Bones tour with Mr. Big opener. Yay. And I am a newlywed. Mazel tov. Congratulations. Here's the question. What period of your life did you feel the most creative and why?
Oh, that's a toughie. You know, there's something to be said about the youthful spark of creation. So, of course, those early records were all instinct, you know, so pure, sort of unadulterated, uneducated instinct. But by the time we had gotten to, I would say, Permanent Waves, we were really starting to hone in on a new idea, which was to try to maintain our progressive ideas, but in a more crisper and more time-aware, you know, package. So I think writing songs like Natural Science and Entre and Spirit of Radio, of course, that was a really creative period for us, and that extended into moving pictures, which is a record that almost didn't happen because we originally were supposed to make a live album after Permanent Waves, and we had a talk with Cliff Bernstein in New York backstage, who was by that time not working with us, but he was still a friend, and he said, you know, you're really onto something. I don't think you should do a live album now. I think you should keep writing.
Yep.
And so that's what we did. We said, Cliff is right. So we canceled our live album plans, and we quickly booked studio time at the studio. And we went in right away and wrote Moving Pictures. So it was a really wonderful creative period. So thank you for that question. I appreciate it.
Okay, so the next question, and I must say, every time people say to me, there are no female Rush fans, I'm like, really? Really? Thank you. So this is from Jill Wilson of Syracuse, New York. Jill, where are you? Where are you?
Hi, Jill.
Yay, Jill! Welcome.
Thank you for coming.
So Jill says, I've had the NYS license plate Love Geddy on my car for as long as I can remember. I used to take it with me to shows. Now the question.
Thank you.
Most people ask you about your bass playing, your keyboard playing, but not about your most personal instrument, your voice, which I don't think you get nearly enough credit for. As a vocalist,
I thought we were going somewhere else.
yeah, and yet we were not.
But it is a personal instrument.
Hey, come on, this is a family show, you know, come on. As a vocalist, were you ever trained in any way? Or did you practice as much as you did with our other instruments? What inspired you to sing in the way you have with Rush throughout its 40-plus year career?
Good question. Thank you for that. So, when I was a kid, I sang in the school choir. And it might surprise you to hear that I was a soprano. I had a boyish voice. And I really enjoyed it. And really, it was before I ever got interested in music seriously. And guitar. I didn't play any other instrument at that time. So it was a great feeling to be singing out like that. And so my schooling in terms of music was, you know, meager. I had very little schooling. I taught myself how to play guitar, and I taught myself how to sing, and my singing aside from the choir, was eventually when I got jamming with my neighborhood kids, we started a band called the Dusty Coconuts. Fantastic name. And I still wasn't singing. It wasn't really until I hooked up with this Alex Lifson character who asked me to fill in for their bass player, whose name was Jeff Jones. And him and this drummer, John Rutsey, were playing this coffee shop, and he called me up. He said, "Will you fill in tonight?" I said, "Sure." And he said, "Oh, well, you've got to sing too, because that guy was the singer." Okay, no problem. So I remember the gig really well, and we played in the basement of this church, and they didn't even have a mic stand, so we taped the microphone to a lamp, and I was singing into the lamp. But it was great fun. I loved it, and so from then on, the guys asked me to join permanently, of course, and so from then on, I was the singer, and I was learning how to sing while we were playing these little gigs here and there. So my whole life has really just been throwing it out there and improvising and hoping that I could learn, and that's why I think one of the reasons I was obsessed with getting better, as my partners were. We really put high value on learning and improvement and working at it and keep trying different things. And of course, the music was quite dense. The songs were heavy, they were loud, they were abrasive in a way, based in blues rock. And I admired this singer named Stevie Marriott, who sang with Humble Pie. Yeah. I don't know if you remember their live at Fillmore album. And the song in particular, "I Don't Need No Doctor." Well, that was kind of my model for the early days, because he sang out, but he had a soulful kind of high-pitched voice. And he also talked and sang. So my early style was sort of like that. It was sort of shout screaming in a way, I guess you could say. And as, of course, our music became more interesting and we got more layers of melody, and once the keyboards came in, I had to learn how to sing properly, and which I tried and I worked very hard on. And in the later years, some of the producers I chose to work with, such as Rupert Hine, I chose him. I really wanted to work with him and our band because he was such a good producer of singers. And I really learned a lot from producers about singing and trying to improve my voice. So I hope that answers your question, but thank you for asking.
A little warning here. I am probably going to annihilate this nice person's name. And I apologize. I've got the first part right, it's Sean. But is the last name Wida or Wida? Wida? Okay, there you go, Sean. Stand up, let us know where you are. Hey, Sean. So, Sean is from Pittsburgh, and says, "I first saw Rush in 1984 when I was 13 years old. I begged my dad to take me and my friend. I saw every tour after that, sometimes twice. My wife and I saw Rush on the Test for Echo tour when she was 8 months pregnant with our first daughter, Jill. We then took Jill, a budding percussionist, to see the Snakes and Arrows tour. See, Rush families, this is a good thing.
I love it.
When she was 10 years old, I truly miss this band. So, we're in Cleveland, home of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. What artist deserves to be inducted but has been criminally overlooked?"
I have some ideas on this.
So do I.
I'm sure
For many years I thought it was you guys, but we worked for it.
But you guys made that happen.
Yes. We worked hard for it.
It wouldn't happen without you guys.
Yep.
Well, I would say the first band that comes to mind, there's a couple that come to mind. The first band, of course, is Jethro Tull. I mean, I love Jethro Tull so much. They were so inspirational to me. And I talk about this in the book, how, as our careers were elongated and we had another chance after Neil's tragedies to come back on the road, so much loosened up about our stage show, and we started to become more comfortable with ourselves and bring more of our sense of humor into the films we produced, etc. And a lot of that was inspired by, when I used to go see Jethro Tull play, because they were really funny. I mean, their staging was elaborate, their music was complicated, and they had a great sense of humor. They would interrupt the song to read the news. They had all kinds of, Monty Python-like episodes in their shows. And their music was so incredibly complex. I think my friend Oscar and I were huge Tull fans, and we listened to Thick as a Brick. I can't even tell you how many times. We could recite the whole album. And so the fact that they are not in the Hall of Fame is just plain wrong. The fact that we're there before them is just plain wrong. So I hope that they will correct that one day. But the other band that comes to mind is King Crimson. Fuck, man. King fucking Crimson. Maybe the most influential progressive rock band of all time. Anyway, so those two bands were hugely influential to generations of players, and so many of them will point to the people in that band. So thanks for your question, and that's my answer.
So the next one is from Greg Miller of Worthington, Ohio.
Greg Miller.
Greg, up and at 'em. Show
Please
us where you
stand
are.
and get no
Thank you, Greg.
prize.
Thank you.
Hi, Greg.
So, Greg writes, just a fan since I was 12 years old, and I was given a copy of Presto on cassette in 1989 as a Christmas gift from my brother. People always like to ask if there is a moment in your life that you would like to do over again. But I'd like to know the opposite. Is there a moment in your life that you'd absolutely want to relive again exactly as it happened?
A moment? Give me all of it. A particular moment. I would love to relive the last 10 years of my band's existence, because I just miss doing that, and I miss doing it with the guys I did it with. I was the luckiest bastard in the history of music, because I had two incredible musicians that loved to play the same music I love to play, and had the same sense of humor as me. We filled each other's gaps. It was like the perfect marriage without the other stuff. And we didn't argue, which is a nice change from marriage. So I would relive the last 10 years of Rush's life. Those tours were just unbelievably fun. Thank you.
The next one is from Stanley Andrews of Vermilion, Ohio. Stanley, where are you?
Andrews.
Stanley. You're right here, all right.
Hi.
And Stanley says something that I want him to stay standing, because I want to really make sure he gets applause for this. I celebrated 4 years of sobriety on November 16th. More power to you, sir. You got your health? That's what matters. So he asks, if you could go back and give your 20-year-old self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Always take your wallet on the stage with you. Seriously, I would love to shake that 20-year-old and say, don't sign it. Do not sign that contract. Get a good lawyer first. Because, when I was 20, it wasn't like today. When you're a young band today, you go online. If you're about to sign a deal, you just Google, what's a good record deal? And you'll get a million answers. When Alex and I were 20 and we were being coerced to sign our very first deal, we didn't know what we were doing. And there's a story I tell in the book, because we were invited to our manager's house, and we were sat down, and our drummer at that time, this is 1974. This is early in 1974. Our drummer was John, and he was sick, so he didn't make it. So it was just Alex and I, and their lawyer was there, and our two managers, and the only lawyer we had at that time was a cousin of Alex's. I remember when I introduced him to our accountant, he said, "Who's this fucking guy?" I mean, he later absconded to South America. Seriously, this guy was such a shitty lawyer. He ran away to South America to hide from the authorities. So thanks, Al. Good choice of lawyer. Anyway, we ended up signing the deal. I didn't want to sign it, but I begged Alex not to agree, but he was so excited. He wanted to do that first tour. He didn't, in my mind, I'm just seeing the error sign, error, don't do this. But anyway, so that would be what I would love to say to myself is, stick to your guns. Don't sign anything you don't feel good about. So, live and learn. Thank you for the question.
Okay, so the next one is Mickey Wolf. Mickey Wolf from Struthers, Ohio. Mickey, where are you?
Where are you?
Mickey, where are you?
Hey.
Over there. All right. Thank you. And Mickey writes, I've been a Rush fan since 1976, 1974 for me. I think back at my life and what an effect Rush has had on me growing up and through my teen years all the way up till my life today. Great lifelong friends, treating people with respect, a great father, grandfather, values that I think you, Alex, and Neil all shared. Not many bands survive 40 plus years with the chemistry that all three of you had. It seems like from the management, the road crew, every member of Rush worked extremely hard to keep the chemistry just right. How hard was this? And at the same time, maintaining your home lives?
Well, that's a mouthful. I write a lot about that in this book. Of course, I can't cover it all in answering your question, but keeping the crew together was a joy, and it was difficult because when you're out on the road for weeks at a time, there are problems. And many times in the middle of the night, there'd be the knock on the door, and one of the crew members is, got an issue. He doesn't feel comfortable to talk to management about it, so he comes to me. I was the guy. And it's sometimes heartbreaking, and you don't know what to say, but you do your best to advise them, whether it's, drugs or whatever has got the better of them. So we tried really hard to maintain a good relationship with our crew. We loved them, number one. We felt like we were a family, so we really tried to keep people around for a long time. It's funny, in Boston last night, I was surprised when I got to the venue, and backstage the promoter had invited two people that I hadn't seen since the last gig, and it was one of our drivers. He was the head driver, and he worked for Rush for 37 years. So, and his wife used to be on the road with him in the cab, and every once in a while, Neil started this. He was the first one. Rather than ride with us in our vehicle or our bus, whatever it was, he'd go with the driver. He'd go with one of the drivers, and he'd do the drive with them. And then so once he did that once, we all had to do that, and it was so fun, and it helped you understand their life, so that you could treat them with the respect they really deserved. And so we had a great history and a lot of employees that stayed for a long, long time. But it's hard because things change, and as life gets busier and as we got more successful, there's more demands. So we used to do things in the later years, like on a day off, we would have a golf tournament with them, where you could being a foursome with some of the guys in the crew, maybe you don't see at the gig because they're coming in so early and then they're leaving and then they come late to pack up. Of course, Alex was the golf guy, so he would create the most outrageous names for some of these tournaments, which I can't say in public. So that was our life with our crew. They meant a lot to us, and I like to think that we meant something to them too. But in terms of home life, well, that is the collateral damage of any road life, you know. And I outline this in the book, and I do have regrets about being away from home so much, especially when my young son was born, you know. I missed a lot of his early life, and that fell on the shoulders of my wife, you know, and she was trying to have a career and raise a child, and, you know, we had very difficult moments, and there were times where we lived completely separate lives. But by some miracle, we hung on to a thread and were able to, you know, seek help and make it work, and stuck to it. And now we've been married for, I think, 4,000 years. It's been. So, thank you for your question.
Okay, so now we have George Yurchison, and if I said that really badly, I apologize. George is from Cleveland.
Where are you, George? Are you
George,
up
you with us? All right.
Over there.
All right. You're up here in spirit. My first ever concert was Rush at Cleveland Public Hall. Oh, I remember that, yeah. December 17th, 1977, with the Motors and Edgar Winter.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Neil's time with Freddie Gruber relearning the drums has been well documented. And you've mentioned that Alex is probably the most musically educated member of the band. But what can you tell us about your journey with the bass and your philosophy of learning to play it your way?
Well, thank you. I am the least educated of all my two other bandmates, but as I illustrated when we were talking about my earliest memories of playing guitar, I had an ear for being able to replicate things I heard very quickly, and that served me well over the years. And although I never became very good at reading music, I could read, but it wasn't my top priority. I took piano lessons for a while, and I was excited because at one point I really wanted to get good, because I think piano is one of the most complete instruments that you can play. You don't need a band, you can just play. But so I decided, you know, that was my path. I evolved. I listened to a lot of different bass players. I was influenced by people I've mentioned. Jack Bruce was a great influence. Chris Squire, John Entwistle, Jack Cassidy. And these were my teachers. You know, this was the school I was going to. By listening to others, they taught me things. Jeff Berlin, great FM bass player. I learned a lot from him, and he pushed me into learning parts of the fingerboard that were, you know, no-go zones when I was younger. And really that's the best way to get better, is to look at your instrument and look at the areas of the instrument you don't use enough and just start using them. And pretty soon every part of the instrument becomes your friend. So when we started playing in the early 90s, I started hearing all these slap players, guys like Les Claypool, for example, who is a great friend of mine and who I adore, but he's a fuck of a good bass player, you know, and Flea, and great bass players. And so I kind of wanted to add more rhythm to my playing. And I didn't like slapping. I wasn't good at it. It felt weird to me. And because I had such a bright sound, the tone of my bass is so clicky and top-endy, slapping didn't have the same effect. It just turned into kind of noise. So I developed a whole other style of playing rhythmically, and that I sort of approached the bass as if it were a flamenco guitar. And I used my fingers, you know, back and forth in a manner that created a kind of slap, and I was able to play more funky-ish bits, and so that's how I started developing. But almost always, my teachers were other bass players. So thank you for your question.
So our next question is from Jason Bellino of Strongsville, Ohio. Jason, where are you?
Right here.
All right.
Hey, Jason.
Hey, Jason.
What's up? I like your t-shirt, dude.
All right.
Guy looks like me.
It says here, I'm a textbook Super Rush fan and Rush memorabilia collector. It's been almost 25 years since the release of your solo album, My Favorite Headache. Have you thought of doing a follow-up now that you've acquired an enormous collection of vintage basses? If so, are there any musicians that you'd like to work with?
Okay, another multi-part question. First of all, I appreciate the question because that kind of thing is on my mind, and I'll tell you why. There was 2 pieces of music I played tonight. Just before the first set, you heard a bit of an instrumental version of a song, and that song is called Gone. And before the second set, there was a piece of music that was playing that you heard the vocal version, and then we faded it out before I came out. So I'll tell you a story about those 2 songs. They were written originally for my solo album, My Favorite Headache, which you asked about, but they were not put on the record and they never went past the demo stage. So while I was writing this memoir, my co-producer, co-writer, co-artist on My Favorite Headache, Ben Mink, found this tape and he sent it to me. And I hadn't heard these songs in over 20 years. And so I put them on and I loved them. I forgot all about them. And now the first song, Gone, was written in the aftermath of Neil's loss, after the death of his daughter. And so it's a song about how people, the horrible feeling you're left with when somebody suddenly is gone from your life, and how are you supposed to make sense of that? And so we finished it and it was beautiful, and in fact it was the very first song we wrote for My Favorite Headache, but I felt it was too raw because these tragedies were recent, and even though it's really about loss in a wider sense, I felt for Neil it was too personal and I didn't want to put it on the record. And the second song was also personal because it was about something the previous question was asking about. It was about the difficulty I was having in my relationship and the kind of conversations you have that are supposed to inform and heal your relationship, but sometimes they do the opposite. So it's kind of about that. So both songs were personal and they stayed off the record. But when I heard them last year, I said, wow, maybe fans would be interested to hear these songs. So I called in my friend David Bottrell, who produces Tool and Peter Gabriel and Crown Lands, and has done some Rush mixes. He's worked for us. And I had him listen to the song. I said, David, what are these? Are these just historical relics? Are they still viable songs? What do you think I should do? And he said, first of all, he said, I love the songs. I think they stand up. I think they deserve to be, cleaned up a bit, like they both had drum machine sounds from 1999 on them. So I said, okay, run with it. So he took them away, cleaned up the sounds. We brought a friend of mine in to play drums, and he did a really sensitive job, especially on Gone. And they're on the audiobook version of this book, and also they're going to be released this week, I think, to radio, and they're available. So the point is that hearing them again, the music inspired me to work again. And that was a long time coming, because after Neil passed away, I had no desire to play anymore. I didn't have any heart to play. So that's changed. The writing of the book has helped that. The redoing these songs has helped that. And so yes, I would like to do something again in music. And he's bugging me to write with him. Coffee together. I will serve him, of course. And I would like to think about maybe doing some more solo work as well. So who knows? I can't promise what the future will bring because it's so unpredictable. If I've learned anything through the last, 8-9 years of my life, it's that life is completely unpredictable. You don't know what's going to happen. So maybe. So thank you. That's a long-winded answer to your question.
We got a couple more. Let's get to them. J.P. Bentz of Columbus, Ohio. J.P., where are ya?
Right on.
Hey, J.P., nice to know ya. First show, June 13th, 1990, Columbus, at the old AAA baseball stadium for the Columbus Clippers. I remember that. Currently in Columbus, cover band called Radio City, where the current local radio station QFM 96 house band after winning competition amongst our peers. Congratulations. Here's the question. Besides baseball, wine, and music, what else piques your interest and keeps you busy when you're not doing tours like this? Cars, other collectibles besides bases, and how often do you hang with or talk to fellow bassist Les Claypool?
I think I have enough hobbies. I do a lot of things outside of those three passions that I have. I am an amateur bird photographer. I love to hike. I love to bike. I do long distance hiking and biking with my wife. And we're obsessive travelers, and I love remote places. I don't know why. I love to go places where there are no humans. Lots of birds, no humans. So those are passions for me. And, in this stage of my life, when now I've spent so much time away from my beautiful partner in life, Nancy, I don't want to do that so much anymore. So I've prioritized our time together. And so what comes first for me are the trips, these great adventure trips that we do. And it's important that they come first and whatever else I do. And I have a few hobbies and I have a lot of obsessions and I can't sit still, as you may have noticed. So I have to make all that work around our travel. Of course, I collect other things. I'm a crazy person. I collect vintage watches now. I'm mad for old things because I believe there's so much to learn about the nature of human beings, and we learn through the past. And hopefully we learn lessons that won't send us down a dark road in the future. But I celebrate craftsmanship, I celebrate art, I celebrate all these things. And so I have a lot of aspirations, and I hope I can fulfill them all in the limited time I may have left. So thank you for asking that question.
Okay, we got a couple more. John Landon, Cincinnati, Ohio. John Landon, where are you? John Landon,
come on
where
down,
are you?
the price
Come on
is
down.
right.
Yeah, he's way back there. Thank you.
I see you.
All right. Says huge Rush fan and a Cincinnati Reds fan. So Nancy says to you, Geddy, you can only keep one autographed baseball and you have to sell the rest. Which autographed baseball do you keep?
That's not fair. Well, I am in fact selling a bunch of my baseballs because I have way too fucking many of them. But there are some I will never sell. I have a baseball signed by my good friend Randy Johnson, which he presented to me after he threw his 300th win. And that's just one of many that is very dear to my heart. I also have a baseball signed by a fellow named Bert Shepard. Now, you probably don't know that name, but he was a pitcher, and in World War II, fighting for his country, he lost a leg. And after the war, he was determined to become a pitcher again. And he worked hard, and eventually he got the chance to pitch one game. He pitched half of one game. And to me, there's a ball where he writes his entire story on this baseball. And to me, that is just an amazing story, and I will never part with that. It's just a beautiful story about endurance and perseverance. So thank you for that question. That's just two. I could go on all night about that show.
Okay, so we got the last one here, okay? So this is Mark Davison, or Dayton, Ohio. Mark.
Stand up and be counted. Mark, where are you?
There you go. He's back there. Hey, Mark,
right.
Thank you. I play in a Rush tribute band did a Rush tribute band around 1979, 1983. Played all the worlds of stage in its entirety, along with Xanadu and La Villa Strangiato. Do you have a singular favorite bass or a preferred make or model? And what determines this?
Okay, so if you're familiar at all with my last book, you saw the level of my insanity. I've amassed over 300 basses now that are all from the golden era, which I consider to be from 1950 through to around 1970. They're all so fucking interesting. They're all so, they all have a different story. They all have a different sound. But for me, my heart really is with the 1962 Fender Jazz basses. You might have seen me on the last tour. There's a green bass I played for Far Cry and a few of the songs from my new number one bass. I love that bass. It doesn't sound like any other bass. It's just magic. There's magic in the bass. So that's my preferred choice. And I won't bore you by going into other details about other basses, but thank you for your question.
And I think these are pretty good questions.
Good job, guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I would like to thank this wonderful person who helped me start my life in music on a much more serious level, so thank you, darling. And I have one more thing I'd like to do before you go. I would like to take my picture with you guys. And so I'm going to ask Rob Tannenbaum to come back out, please. And the three of us are going to stand center stage. I like the house lights on, please. And that's it. Make yourselves as big as you can. And my photographer, the great Richard Sibbald, is going to take our photo together. So, make some noise! Thank you. Thanks to Rob, thanks to Donna, and more importantly, thank you fucking guys! Thank you! Thank you! And thank you! How can I thank you? What a life. I'm the luckiest guy in the music business, so thank you for being a part of the latest chapter in my effing life. Good night!